This is one of the first newspaper stories ever written about the American prison that our government decided to set up in communist Cuba a few months after 9/11. This was published on January 10th, 2002 in the Miami Herald. A new Alcatraz rises, Guantanamo ready for Taliban. The article quotes the commander in charge of the prison back then, saying that the goal for how to treat people at that prison was as follows, quote, "It will be humane, but we have no intention of making it comfortable." The reporter who wrote that first story more than a decade ago about this new way the U.S. was keeping people in prison offshore in another country was Carol Rosenberg. That was her first story about Guantanamo Bay as a prison camp. Her most recent story on the same subject was today. It was about how the American Medical Association has written to the Pentagon now to protest the force feeding of the 100 prisoners at Guantanamo who are currently on a hunger strike there. Carol Rosenberg has been covering Guantanamo for more than 11 years. She is often the only reporter who's consistently on that very difficult beat. She has been called the institutional memory of Guantanamo. It is a statement that I agree with, and she joins us live for the interview tonight. Carol Rosenberg, Miami Herald, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you.
You have been a lifeline for a lot of us in terms of understanding what's going on there, even when nobody else has been willing to pay attention. I know you were last there about 10 days ago. You have said that you have not seen conditions there this austere since President Obama took office. What do you mean by that?
For much of the Obama administration, and even in the final days of the Bush administration, communal was the norm, meaning that groups of detainees, 8, 10, 12, got to eat together, pray together, watch TV together. The vast majority were considered to be communal captives who were kept in medium security confinement. The guards were on the outside looking in. The detainees were on the inside organizing their own lives. And when I went back down there about 10 days ago after this raid, virtually every detainee down there is under lockdown. One man to a cell, kept inside as many as 22 hours a day, can be all day if he refuses recreation. The way he got to recreation before, during the earlier part of the Obama years until last month, he walked outside his cell, he went outside to a yard, and the guards would be keeping an eye on him. Now, to leave that cell and go to a recreation yard, he has to be shackled by the hand and feet and led with a guard on each side and put into a cage, a cell. For all but a very few number of detainees down there, that is the norm. We have not seen that for the majority of them for years, and they have not experienced that for years. There were detainees who were considered medium security communal detainees throughout much of the Obama administration, and something has gone terribly wrong. Most of Guantanamo now is under lockdown. Can you tell, actually, I should say, can you tell if the lockdown is because of the prisoners protesting, or are the prisoners protesting because of the lockdown? Which came first? The protest came first. The lockdown was a result of the guards deciding that they needed to go in and clear off the cameras of the cells. You know, under communal, the doors were open to their cells, and it was more like dorm room atmosphere. Obviously, it's a prison, it's not a college, but they could come and go from their cells with the exception of 2 hours a night when they were supposed to lock themselves inside. And the way they watched is the guards looked through cameras, and they could see each of the men in their cells at night during this 2-hour period, if not more. Well, one by one, they covered up their cameras. We're talking about 80, 90, 100 detainees of the 166. They put cereal boxes on their cameras. And if you listen to the attorneys, this was considered a sign of distress. They believed that their conditions had gone they believed that their conditions had gotten to be so bad, they wanted someone to intervene.
So even while they were still living communally, they hadn't been put in sort of lockdown conditions, they still felt that conditions were changing, and that's what they were protesting about by blocking the cameras.
They felt they had lost benefits.
Okay.
There had been in January there had been in February a shakedown in which the guards went into the individual cells and took many things away. They took, according to the lawyers, legal documents, they took family photos, they took the military has said they took electronic equipment that they didn't understand how these detainees had gotten. They took away, according to the lawyers, wristwatches, which the military says they were not allowed. But 2 years ago, I'm there, and I had seen wristwatches on the detainees and asked about this and was told this was a perk that the military had decided to give some individuals.
And then they retracted it.
And then the guards changed, and a new rotation of guards came in, and whatever they saw in their protocols, whatever they believed the circumstances of detention and doctrine should be, did not match what they saw going on in the prison. And so they started taking things away.
So this should be seen both as what's going on right now with this real crisis that we've got now with all these prisoners refusing food. We should see this as a response to a change in conditions that may be about just differences of opinion in administrative approaches to how to manage this prison facility over time between different rotations of American commanders. But is it also a form of speech protesting their indefinite detention?
Well, I think all sides agree that the shakedown was the spark, but the underlying issue is frustration. Yeah. That these men have been held there for 11 years. 86 of them were told about. 86 of them were designated about 6 years ago, 86 of them were designated about 4 years ago for release with conditions, and nothing has happened. So that frustrations boiled up, and when this shakedown came, when the new guards arrived, whatever the source of tension was, erupted into this hunger strike. So what you had was a hunger strike going on behind the hidden cameras, and guards who felt that they couldn't see if people were starving themselves to death in secret, went in, cleared off the cameras, put them in their cells, and now can watch them, have complete control over them 24 hours a day. If somebody were to cover up their camera, they'd be alone in a cell, locked inside, and the guards have protocols for how to go inside, subdue that prisoner, and take and clear the camera. So the doctrine allows the guards this total control, but in the process the detainees have lost a quality of life that they've become accustomed to, that was seen as a management tool for taking care of people who, if politics and international affairs had not intruded, could have been gone 3 years ago, could have been taken to their homelands or found another country to resettle them, and that some of these men were chosen to be released through reviews conducted by the CIA, the DIA, the FBI, the Justice Department, the State Department, all looked at the files and said there's 86 men who really shouldn't be there. Let's find a way to get them out. And they haven't gotten them out.
And they knew they were on that. They knew that they had been adjudicated in that way. The hope that they would leave is then quashed, and then it's indefinite with no hope of knowing how it's going to end.
Yes, they don't see a way out.
It's amazing. The international and policy consequences of this are playing out in places like that briefing room today. But knowing the connection of those political debates to what the circumstances are on the ground, a lot of the way we are able to connect those things is because of your reporting, for which I have been grateful all these years, and I'm very grateful you're here. Carol Rosenberg, thank you very, very much.
Thank you.
Carol Rosenberg works for the Miami Herald, but the whole country owes the Miami Herald a debt of gratitude for employing her to stay on the Guantanamo beat when nobody else would. Thank you. We'll be right back.